badasses. I'm so excited to be here with the final installment of my Summer of Magic LinkedIn Live series. This has been an absolutely magical Summer of Magic, as it should be just by its name. But for those of you who are just joining us at the end of August, we do still have several weeks left in the actual summer. And what I mean by that is the Summer of Magic is meant to celebrate over 432 promotions throughout the summer of 2024. And we're about 70% of the way there. So you still have several weeks to get yourself promoted and to be celebrated as part of this magical season. And also as part of that, I've been interviewing leaders who have either gotten themselves promoted as part of the Summer of Magic series, or they are an expert in helping women advance into higher levels of leadership. So go back and check out those videos as well. And thank you, Marie, for saying hi. That reminds me too, as you're watching, we are live. So Kristi and I both can answer your questions. We'd love to hear your comments. And even if it's just to say hi, it helps other people find this interview as well. So welcome, Kristi. I'm so excited to have you here. Hello.
Thank you so much. Hello.
I'm going to have you introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Kristi Sarno. I'm now the Senior Vice President of Business Development at iBio. And I've been working with Stacy for a number of years now, and has helped my career tremendously over the past few years. I've been doing business development for quite some time, and mixing that in with corporate strategy as well. And that's one of the things that I love doing is seeing how business development influences the ability of companies to build their pipeline, build their company, change their strategy. So it's great to be here today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Kristi is also, I've done several interviews with Kristi. So maybe Marie can link to some of those in my podcast in the show notes, so you can find out more about her. But for today's quick interview, we're going to focus specifically on magic. So as we get into it, I just curious, do you believe in magic?
I'm going to have to after this summer. I mean, many people may know. So my former company was Homology Medicines, and we did a reverse merger, which closed at the beginning of this year. But I went through, a lengthy process. I would call it a lengthy process, finding my next role. I wanted it to be the right role, with the number of elements that I was looking for. And, it wasn't always fun. So I think finally landing at a place where I've been now for a month, and it's been, everything I've hoped for so far, and a lot of fun. We'll have to call that magic.
Yeah, totally. Now, I know one of your superpowers is networking, and I call you like a super connector. And this isn't just because Kristi has such an extensive network. It's also because she knows how to use her network and then also support her network. She just really kind of blows my mind when it comes to that. And I feel like with networking, a lot of people can feel like it's magic outside of ourselves. Like as in, sometimes people are just good at it. Sometimes people are just like naturally, their network works for them. Can you talk about any magical components? I always love talking to you about that. So anything that you do specifically to work within your network?
I mean, I did a lot of the things that people would normally do when they're looking for a new role, reaching out to people that, I know, who know me, who can go through, what my skill set is, help me practice for interviews, things like that. And a number of people did that with me over this time. The other thing that I found really fascinating during this time period in a good way was my interaction with recruiters this time, and helping me expand my network. There's a couple of recruiters that I really connected with, even though I didn't end up at my next role through them. And some of them I'm still in touch with. They gave me great feedback. We talked about what I'm trying to do with my network as far as helping other women. They're introducing me to other women. I mean, this has been a fantastic side effect of me, right, a new role. So that's been amazing. And, I'm also not the only one who's in this position over the past year or so. And so I've been trying to help my people who reach out to me connect with the right people, sometimes on the science side or whatever. And, I always love to see if two of my connections end up getting together in some other place. That's always like gratifying for me too. So it's been a mix of all of those things that I've witnessed over this time period. And I'll just add, in the meantime, I'm still trying to do what I always do. I started my Next Up group for folks at my level, sort of pre-C level. We're actually having a get together next week where we get together and just kind of talk about the challenges that we face at this level. A lot of them have to do with, we're still managing up. We also have, a lot of us have teams to manage. And we're also trying to figure out how to move from the execution phase of our career to the strategic thinking phase of our career. I mean, those things happen at all levels, but kind of shifting more towards that strategic piece rather than the task-oriented piece. And that's kind of hard to do. So we're doing that together as well. And it's been a crazy ride.
Kristi has this amazing ability. She's like, I have this Next Up group. She created this group from scratch and brought these women together and then brings in guests to this. I mean, it's just, yeah, Kristi is fantastic. And then I was also thinking about how just like you see these openings and then you just like you're like sort of like, why not me? Why don't I put it together? If nobody else is doing this, then I'll create it. And then I don't get me wrong, she doesn't end up just killing herself and doing all the work, right? You're able to then share the love. Is that true?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, the impetus of the group was I did see, like, I didn't feel like there was a resource that fit what I needed, which was not a lot of logistics, not a lot of advanced planning, more of just like, I wanted to have a group of women that I could get together with and talk about some of these topics. But I also didn't want it to just be a social event because there's a lot of other forums for that. So I just created it the way I wanted it.
Yeah, exactly. That is so good. That's a magical ingredient.
Yeah. And people were pretty on board with it. So we have a group going and some have volunteered. The logistics are minimal right now. We just have to find a reservation. But, keeping it
that's part of it, right? Because I think that if we overcomplicate things, then what happens? They die, right? So it's keeping the logistics minimal is also part of the formula. So speaking of formula, I have talked on my podcast about different steps that I think particularly create this magical ability to get promoted or to have recognition, to have that voice. And one of the ingredients specifically is intention. And I like to talk on this series about something that stands out for me with my guests, specifically around those magical qualities. And for you, I definitely think intention. You are able to see your path forward, your 3X vision, your 1X vision, where you belong, your seat at the table so clearly. And then it's like, oh, well, I can do that. And then you actually have to take the steps forward to get there, right? And so, but even just recognizing that intention is so powerful, and the fact that you knew where you wanted to be in your next role, just like you said at the beginning of this interview, you didn't just want any role. You wanted it to be the next up, next level role. Can you talk about how you use intention in your process?
Yeah. And that also was eye-opening over this past year, because I did have a picture in my mind of the elements I wanted in this next role. So I wanted to be on the management team. I wanted to be at a smaller company, so I'd have, a lot of impact. I wanted to be part of a strategy, probably, mostly building something, either a pipeline or a company. I had some certain things that I knew would be fulfilling to me for that role. And it was interesting, and you and I have talked about this, but it was interesting because a lot of people more people supported me than not, but there was a large enough group of people that said, why do you want this perfect role? Why can't you settle for less? It's tough out there. Like, you might not get that. Things like that. And I was really surprised because I thought to myself, well, if I don't tell people what I want, then if they hear of something, they won't be able to recommend me for the right thing, is how I was thinking about it. But some people took it as like stubbornness or, I don't know, ego or whatever, title hungry, things like that. And I was actually really surprised. And I had to work through that because I ended up where I wanted to be. But if I wasn't adamant that I wanted to be there, then I think the result would have just been that I would end up in a role that I would want to leave in a year or so. And that's not what I was looking to do.
Right.
So it was interesting.
Yeah.
It's a lot of learning.
Yeah. And she's not just speaking in hypotheticals. These were things that were actually said out loud to her. And I think this is really important for you to know as the listener. And if you've had that happen to you or that advice, and it can make you shrink back or question yourself or wonder, well, maybe I am setting my sights too high, or like I'm asking for too much. One of the things that Kristi and I talked about is this not helpful desire to protect women. And, we often in our coaching or just our conversations will ask, it's a good question to ask. Would I say the same thing to a man? Would a man get that advice? And I think the reason why that is, whether it's a man or a woman, the reason why that question is good, because it sort of makes you wonder, like, why are they saying that to me? And I think one of the reasons can also be, it's less about the qualifications and more about the protection, right? So I don't want you to get hurt or set your sights too high, or what if that doesn't work out? And so I really admire Kristi for her conviction and her clarity, but then also the willingness to take the step back, because I feel like when you're presented with that question, you got super clear on your why. You were like, oh, it's not just a title. This is actually what I want to be doing and the impact that I can make right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Because like I said, I had gotten to a place in my career where I was confident that I could add value to that situation. And I was aware that that wasn't going to be as obvious to people that didn't know me, which was fine. But I knew that I had something to add. And so I wanted to get to a place and a group of people that would accept that.
Yeah, totally. And bring that to the table. Yeah. So a question I ask everybody is, why do you personally feel motivated to have a voice at the table?
Yeah, that's a question that sometimes the answer changes, but for the most part,
I know. Well, I've asked you this a few times, right?
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of it is what I've just spoken about, where, I think I've learned enough now that throughout my career, that like it is time for me to have an impact at that level and share my experience while we're discussing strategy or while we're planning the next deal. Some of it is also, I still feel weird about it sometimes, but I get comments from people that are in different places of their career. Like, I've been watching you. I'm so proud of you. Like, you're a good example for me. So I do want to set that example as well. And, it's also still a place where I can learn so much now that I have exposure to some different conversations. So I think it's all three of those things. Like, I need to be in a place where I can learn more. I need to be in a place where I can share what I've learned. And the side effect is that I can also be an example for others. So to me, those are all combined.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm so glad to have you in this new role. I can't wait to see as it continues to grow, and you're such a badass, and thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Yeah, thank you. And I have to give credit to you and the other members of the leadership table, where we talk about these things all the time. And it's such a great forum to be able to have a group of people that you share these things with. And I think that was sort of the inspiration a little bit for my next up group. So shout out to all those ladies as well.
Thank you. Thanks.